All right, good evening. Thank you for joining us. We're here. This is kind of be a, I don't know, lighthearted is probably the wrong word, but we're going to quickly run down a few of the highlight issues, and then we're going to kind of talk about the political journey and our strategy a little bit. So this may be a little bit longer than normal, but with this final weekend, I wanted to make sure that people who just came upon to us have kind of at least an overview of where we've come from, how we got here, and kind of the mindset. So our first, I got here because I'm a gig worker, fundamentally. I mean, my political journey, which we'll discuss here in a few minutes, but I'm here because gig workers asked me to run. I told political people no, but when my fellow gig workers, asked me to run, I could no longer say no. And so many people would think that my platform is surrounded upon mostly like the anti-AB5 or the yes on 22, but it's not. Because you can't run on a single issue and ask the populace to support you. You have to represent everybody. You can't just represent your issue or your ideology or your party. And so I wasn't going to say yes unless I could have a fully thought out platform, even if our chance of winning was slim. And so we did. We developed it. We didn't have to change very much from our kind of standard thought processes, even when kind of the world's foundations changed under us with the social unrest and the COVID-19. We didn't have to change our platforms. Our social justice, criminal reform, justice reform platform stayed the same. Because we always wanted to get the investigation and prosecution of police abuses outside of the hands of the police. Not just given to the Attorney General, but to a whole completely separate organization run by people who are outside. Groups like the ACLU need to get together and create an organization to investigate and prosecute these kind of things. Education needs to be decentralized because it no longer works for the individual students. Education is the most important thing we can do for ourselves, for our communities, for our families, but it's not working the way we've designed it. It's not for lack of effort. It's not for lack of care. It's not for lack of desire. It's not for lack of money. We've been doing it wrong. It works for some people. Somewhere between 30 and 60% the current system works for, depending upon where you live. But for those who it doesn't work for, it's an absolute disaster. And we have to give them options. We need to give communities support, not band-aids. And that goes back to our view of organic communities. The concept of organic communities is our communities themselves, as small as possible, get to make decisions on the micro level. It's not for city councils to decide what happens on our street. It's our decisions. Especially when they start asking for taxpayer money. If you're going to ask a neighborhood to bear the burdens, they should at least have the say. And it also brings us to things like the family safety net. The cost of living is outrageous here in California. In my own neighborhood, it's skyrocketing, and they've approved Aggie Square, and it's going to skyrocket even more. We have a love affair with high property values without understanding the high costs associated with that. And it's not just the cost of rent that goes up. It's the cost of everything that goes up. It's not just mortgage payments, it's insurance payments, tax payments, everything involved with it goes up. And so you have to ask for more money because you have to pay more money. And so the cost of everything goes up. Stable property values are great, but we've lost something. We've lost viewing a home ownership as an investment in generations of families instead of an immediate financial investment for ourselves. In generations past, people bought a house to pass on to their grandchildren. And now we buy houses to sell as an investment so we can move someplace cheaper. There's something lost there. And it's not even definable. Our communities have lost roots. You know, when a family has lived in a community for 70 years, even if it's generations of families, there's roots there. It's a strong community. When communities that are transitory, when they change, roll over every 5-10 years, they become soulless. And we need to change that. But that changes with the mindset. A lot of people talk about the environment. We need to be cleaner. We need to find ways to learn to live cleaner, but we have to do so smarter. We can't actually, in things like many of our recycling programs actually create more pollution than these take away. We'd be far better off putting some of this stuff in landfills. But it doesn't mean it's always a solution. We have to just be smarter. In some areas, you know, recycling cardboard is a benefit. In other areas, if you have to bundle it up and put it on a boat to China, it's not. And so we have to be smart. We have to, you know, put emotions aside and actually consider all the science, all the data, including the pollution chain. You know, batteries and electric cars are nice unless you live near the mines to create them. That's a messy process as well. Is it better than oil? Probably. But it's not as clear as we seem to think. The size and scope of government is our biggest problem. We've asked it to do too much, and it's failing. From the EDD to the DMV to the cops on the street. It's not the people's fault. It's not the fault of the average worker, of the average government worker, of the average cop. In a sense, it's not even the fault of the politicians. They've done what we've allowed them to do. But it is time to change that. So, talking about politicians, and if you have any questions, please send us some questions on the Facebook page. You can go to the website and click the contact buttons, and there's a form you can fill out. But contact us on Facebook or YouTube is probably easiest at the moment with the end of the campaign coming around. So my political journey actually started as an accident. A couple years ago, it was just before the last governor's election. I was, so I say, politically bereft. I was done. I was ready to unregister to vote and completely forget about politics. But I couldn't quite do it. And so I went looking for someone who I could support on a deeper level than politics. And I found someone who actually became my friend. Hey, wait, let me get you something. Hold on. It was this. Quite literally, all I wanted was a yard sign. A few years ago, all I wanted was a yard sign. My friend Nicholas Wellstar, running for governor. Got a nice signature on there. There you go. It's a nice thing. All I wanted was a yard sign to show support for someone who, while we have political disagreements, I could believe in his humanity. And then after he spent some time talking to me, and the next thing I know, I was volunteering for his campaign. And then we had a not quite successful attempt to get on the ballot 2 years ago for the same office. We had other personal things going on. We didn't succeed in our signature, despite it being a relatively easy barrier. And then so I said, we're not going to do that again. You know, it was not my plan to run for office. 11 months ago, we weren't going to do it. January 1st, I had decided no, I wasn't going to do it. Gig workers had asked me, political operatives had asked me, and I wasn't going to do it. Political operatives have their own agenda. And at the time, I figured somebody else would step up. Amongst the hundreds of thousands of people here in Sacramento, somebody would step up. But then in early January, after I'd recorded a TV show, I went to a Brewer Milk, still remember. And someone asked me, what are you guys going to do about AB5? And I didn't have a good answer for them, because I knew no one else was going to do it. No one else in my area was going to try to actually do something. So after some soul searching and a few sleepless nights, I decided we'll give it a try. And we knew going in that this was a long shot at best. I called it the 3 miracle method, just to make sure I wasn't lying to myself or anybody else on the actual chance we stood. We started off in a $400,000 hole. We had no money. They had $400,000 in the bank. And so a traditional campaign we could never have run. We could never have won. So running one was pointless. And so how do we do something for real under circumstances where it's doing it that way is impossible? Well, when doing it some way is impossible, you have freedom to try new things. If you can't win, you might as well try something different. And so I originally had a plan. We were going to do community centers and outreach events kind of once every week, once every 2 weeks over the course of time, build up support in areas, maybe get community captains in certain areas so they could deal with literature drops and that type of thing, and run a completely ground level campaign. And just as we were finishing the designs of that, COVID and then lockdowns came. And that went all out the window. And I'd always had a weakness in my attempts to be a politician. I despise asking for money. I find it gross. And I find it reprehensible when you have to go to big money donors and ask for money. And that I couldn't do. So I didn't. Which puts us behind an even bigger 8 ball. Maintaining ethics has a cost. And so we didn't do. One thing we would do differently was I'd focus some more money on early printing and early literature drops. That's kind of a lesson I've learned. So we didn't do that kind of thing. We decided to focus on what I do well, and that's this. I talk well. I communicate with people well. I answer questions well. I relate to people well. I empathize well. So we focused on doing that. And the hope was that we would convince other people running for office that they didn't need to run a campaign. That was our strategy. Quite literally, our strategy was to run a quiet enough campaign so the other people didn't feel they needed to run one. It's not the world's greatest political strategy, I know, but it's the only one we had a chance at. Now, did we do it perfectly? No, we did not. Many of us are first timers, or essentially first timers. And so we're learning as we go, and we're making up new rules as we go. We were going to make mistakes. We didn't organize community captains well when we had the chance. We should have. And then by the time they came to us organically, there was nothing left further to do. And so we lost that opportunity. Now, hopefully people understand that, circumstances, education, and resources kind of force us down this path. But it wasn't blindly. We didn't do it because, it was the only path actually left to us. We deliberately took it. I could have gone and asked for money. I could have found ways. I could have gone out and actually hired a fundraiser. And we had enough money to do that at start. But I didn't want to spend money to raise money. That's how everybody else does things. We want to do things differently. We talk about organic communities, so we have to run an organic campaign. It's practicing what we preach. We talk about being transparent. We're being transparent. I answer questions openly. Tomorrow night we'll have questions about family court. A question was asked about 10 minutes ago about family court, and we'll talk about that tomorrow. Transparency and the ability to have rational discussions on a wide variety of subjects, regardless of whether I agree or disagree or opinions. But the ability to have these discussions rationally is our selling point. The ability to make best use of our resources, to use proper prioritization. We wouldn't be building a $755 million office building during the middle of a pandemic. At least not without a hell of a lot of noise. And so we're here, not because I wanted to be, but because people asked me to try to do something. And I said, okay. And whatever political future I may have will happen the same way. I don't have political ambitions. I don't have a next office I want to run for in my head. I may not want to. I probably don't want to. In a grand scheme of things, I probably would prefer not to. I'd likely to help other people achieve their goals. But if my community asks, would I say no? I don't know. Just don't know. If I say no, the world will make me a liar. That much I do know. So the question is, I don't know. I don't think so. You know, it's not the price I pay that's actually my problem. I don't mind my time not being my own. I don't mind coming out here and talking to you. I love kind of having political conversations. You know, running for office is okay. And being elected would be fine, would be great. It's the campaigning is the problem, but it's not the weight it carries on me. It's the weight it carries on people who care about me and who love me. You know, this lovely Christina, she's sitting here pressing all the buttons for us. You know, she has to lose her time with me. She has to watch me go out and be stressed. She's the one sacrificing. You know, it's my team that sacrifices their time. All volunteers. You know, our treasurer has to not just sacrifice her time. She signs legal documents. Has a legal burden to bear voluntarily. That's a humbling experience. And this journey has taught me a lot about myself, about my communities, about the world of politics, how it's both uglier and more rewarding somehow than we could have imagined. There is this strangeness about this world of politics. It's not pleasant, but at the same time, you get to meet some of the most wonderful people. You have to deal with difficult issues, but at the same time, you interact with people who give you hope and inspiration. One of these days, I'll be able to properly express this, but today's not the day. So before I get all teary-eyed and weepy, because I'm humbled by the support we've gotten, the people who spent their time, energy, money to help us. Thank you. It's the best I've got right now. Anyway, we'll see you tomorrow night for a quick discussion on family court. Thank you for your time. Good night, and love everybody.